All right, so yeah, my leg story that I like to share, that's because it's so much like what you would expect from it. It'd be scary to somebody else or like to somebody who's not along tradition. So the Veve that I have for him that I've been working with for 10 years, I've painted it on metal. I had this Veve in a number of ways, but I had this one Veve that I've been working with for him for 10 years, and that's like him to me. But the Veve ripped right along the cane. I don't know why it ripped like that, but somehow I don't know. I actually don't even remember how it ripped. It just ripped right, but the cane on this Veve is so thin, but it ripped right down the middle. And then I taped it back together. But then sometime later, I looked over, and it was bleeding along the cane. And so this was a while back. So I was kind of uncertain, and I was just like, I'm probably hallucinating. That's the first thing that I thought. And then another day, I saw it bleeding again, right along the cane onto the wood underneath. I'm like, I'm probably hallucinating. And then another day, I looked back at it, and there's a red stain right along the cane. And there was no reason that I should have been hallucinating, but in my head, I'm like, I'm just hallucinating. But then I picked up the Vave. I'm like, there's a red stain here. Obviously I wasn't hallucinating, but like it was almost like he was like poking me like, hey, look, he's trying to get my attention. And then finally I saw that there's actually a stain there, and I was like, oh wow, okay, he was trying to get my attention. And I kind of figured out exactly what he was trying to communicate and things like that. But it was it for some reason it would scare somebody else, but it didn't scare me. Especially like a lot of people, they saw like a piece of paper bleeding along a rip, and then it was going on to like the wood underneath it. It would have made somebody freak out. But I was just like, eh. But then after once I realized that it was an actual stain and I wasn't police, I was like, oh wow, okay, let me just figure out what he's trying to tell me or like what's going on. But does that experience sound similar to some of the stuff you've heard or experienced?
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially one of Legba's colors, is red, and the red for Legba is like the totality of life. The possibility for anything to come out of existence. Life,
Oh yeah.
the lifeblood of life, right? And so I had this one experience with Legba where I had I don't know, I think I lived in Boston and Salem at the time, and I had to go to New York City. I had about $25 with me, and I knew usually it's going to cost way more than that. So I was trying to figure out how I was going to get all the pieces to go. So I just asked what, help me out, get me to where I got to go, right? We're gonna and so literally I get on the public train, the commuter rail from Salem to Boston. The Bruins had just won, so the train ride was free. And so we get out on South Station. I get into a cab to go to North Station. The cab driver gets in an accident, doesn't charge me for the ride. So I'm like, okay, that's 2 for 2. I get to the bus station, and then literally at the bus station, they're like, we sold out of tickets. And the only tickets we have left are ones online, and we can't sell them to you until like 20 minutes before the boarding time. So I'm standing there waiting, and the guy calls me over, and he's like, okay, you got $10, and I paid $10 for this ticket. I get on the bus, and I was gonna get there.
Right than what it was worth. Like, was it?
Oh yeah. Usually I paid $30, $40 for a ticket, and this guy was selling it for 10. I was like, right away, I'll take that. And the bus usually what it would do is to take you all the way down to 34th Street. But my godfather at the time, he lived up in the Bronx, and so I'd have to take the train all the way to the Bronx. Well, it was super late, and the bus driver pulls over, and we're not really in New York City yet, or at least we're not in in Manhattan. And so I'm looking at my phone, like, oh my God, where are we? How do I get to where I'm going? And I look, I'm 6 blocks from my godfather's house. So I literally I walk there, and I'm just so stunned that I made it for no money at all. And it was Legba really, really came through, because it was it's not that those things will happen every time, but it's because we don't like. I don't really want them to show it to me like that every time. I don't need there to be some phenomena that proves to me that they're real or they exist. But it's when they do show it to you, you should probably believe it. You know what I mean? Because they're showing you for a reason.
They're putting in the effort on their end, and so we should put the effort in on our end. And if they are putting in the effort, we should kind of appreciate it, because it's not like they have to. It's not like we're summoning them and putting them in a circle or something like that and making them mess with it, like making them do whatever we want. And what drives me crazy about a lot of magic in general, and even people who even some people who ask things about voodoo or who are maybe just starting, it's almost like no matter what kind of magic people are doing, whatever tradition they're going into, there's so many people that just want things, and they want things immediately, and that's why they're doing it. And it's almost like they're walking up to like strangers and just being like, hey, give me here, like, hey, how are you doing today? Now give me money. It's like
Yeah.
that's not something you would do to another person, but it's how so many people behave in just magic or various traditions in general. Have you seen that as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, people have really high demands and want to pay very little to receive what amounts to a lot. Like, I get crazy requests all the time, and I have to think about like, okay, I'm approaching my Lua with this request. How do I do that? You know what I mean? How do I phrase this thing where like, oh, this really rude ass dude really wants you to like, make everything really easy for them. They're an asshole. They're a jerk to everybody, but make it happen. And it's like, oftentimes it's like if you like the Lawat, like this is a true thing about Voodoo. Voodoo will show you who you are and it will meet you there. So if you are a good person and you're trying to just do good, they will meet you there. If you are a bad person and you're trying to do bad, they will meet you there too. But it's like the kind of relationship that you'll have with them after that fact, or eventually you're going to come to a place that may be uncomfortable for you because you're now faced with beings that are meeting you at your level, which may not be what you want at all.
And a
Like
lot of people, I imagine, they don't realize it initially, and they just think that, oh, they think that, oh, why are these spirits, why are these gods taking this out on me? When in reality, it's just like, hey, you showed up with a gun and pointed at me. I'm doing the same thing. Yeah.
exactly. It's like honor and respect is the what we say. When it used to be like as commonplace as like hello, right? You enter a place, say honor, get the response, respect, and like that's like the fundamentals of voodoo. That and have a good character, which isn't really honestly talked about that much with voodoo. But like I've seen instances where like the Loa are like, oh, we see this shady shit, and we're going to take care of it right away. There was this instance with an individual. They were having a voodoo party for Kuzan, and there was a lot of impetus for this person to show up at this event, and they were kind of like on the outs with these people. But I was like, well, me and my god kids are going to go to this thing, so we can all sit together and it'll be okay. But they were still really uncertain about it, and so I was like, well, just talk to Kuzan. Like if you're supposed to go, you'll go. If not, that's just what it's supposed to be. And about an hour before the party was supposed to start, it was canceled because the person had a tremendous health issue, and they could not go on. And so it was like they clearly there was something shady that was going to happen there, and then Loa shut it down. And I've seen that happen lots of different times where it's like they won't let weird shit always happen in their name. Sometimes stuff's got to happen because the person has to be pushed to a place or has to realize that this isn't the thing. When I was first coming up in this thing, I remember there used to be this lady on there's this TV show on Lifetime called this American Psychic Challenge, whatever. There was this lady on there I thought was real appealing. She was like doing voodoo, and she was like kind of spooky, whatever. And I didn't know any better, right? So I like go talk to this person, hang out with them, and like they're nuts, they're crazy, and I had to have that experience though to know what not to do, what not to go for, and then in the future what I should never do to anyone else. Because if we don't learn from not only our mistakes, but if we don't learn from how people are supposed to be, if we don't learn that what's not on the level, then we'll never be on that level. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And like there are just people that are mentally imbalanced and that's why you do like I feel people out as well. Like if I feel like somebody easy, so what I usually look out for is if they're just trying to make money or just trying to get views or something like that, just trying to get attention, or if they it's not so much they're doing something wrong as they're just completely wrong about everything because they have some kind of mental imbalance, and that's something that I look out for at least. But
Yeah.
because there are people like that out there.
Yeah.
But so I have to ask, so it's often said that Met Calfu is the one who opens up the bad things in your life, and Legba's the one that kind of opens up the good doors. From our conversation, it feels like that there might be more to that, or it might be different than what a lot of people think. What is up with Met Calfu, maybe compared to Legba, or just Met Calfu by himself? Because there's just a lot of appeasement there, rather than actually trying to connect with this spirit. More like, hey, I'll give you this, just stay away from me, kind of thing. Like, what's up with that?
Like Kalfu, Mekafu is like, when he gets a lot of shit because he's at the crossroads, he's at the place of decision and choice. It's not his fault if we make a bad choice. It's not our fault. It's our fault. It's his fault if it was up to him, but it's not. He's just the guy that's like, you can go this way or this way or this way. Which way you want to go, right? And like, Kalfu is really he's a Loa of luck. He's a Loa of like people that are really prone to car accidents, or people that are really prone to they gamble a lot and they get out the short end of the stick. They gotta go to Kalfu. They gotta to be able to kind of mitigate those situations. He's not bad. It's just he's just doing his job. Like his job is to make sure that because when we're at a crossroads, we got three choices because we can't go backwards, right? So the way that we perceive it is we got the road that continues onto your destiny, smooth sailing. You got the road that goes to the forest, so that's a little more. It's like the kind of the detour, if you will. And then you got the road that leads towards the cemetery, right? And that's the road that's leading you further away from your destiny, but more close to the end of your life, right? And so it's like, no matter which way we pick, it's a part of our fate, right? Because fate is the difference between fate and destiny and voodoo is destiny is what we have planned to do beforehand, and fate is what we end up doing while we're here. It's like, but like, so he's that middleman for that. But Kalfu is like not Legba, or he's not a hot version of Legba. He's his own entity. He's his own force in the middle of the crossroads, whereas like he's the space, the interval between like where one Legba starts and another stops, and because like there's so many Legbas, there's there's Legba Tiban, there's Legba Shuket, Legba so and so, and we all walk with certain ones throughout our life. Sometimes some more than others, sometimes some less than others too, but it's like they're all trying to do good by us, right? They're all trying to, or at least interact with us on the level. It's when we blame our shortcomings or our mistakes on them, that's where people get kind of confused, kind of mixed up. Because like
strong Yama vibes from Met Calfu. There's a general fear of death and the misunderstanding of it, and it being a transition. And sometimes things are meant to happen, and we're gonna hate it, but it's kind of what either as a result of, well, ultimately everything's a result of our actions, kind of, but also just what was going to happen. Like it's not. A lot of people like to see duality in every tradition. That's why there's a lot of people that think the Petwo and the Rada are like, Petwo are evil and the Rada are good, or things like that. We like to see duality, but when you start to be in a tradition like deeper and deeper, I find that people start to realize the grayness of things rather than everything just being either this or that. It's more like everything at once. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's like there is no dualism or dichotomy that's happening where like it's black on one side, white on the other, or like good or bad. Like they're a mixture of all these things. It's a full experience of life. It's a whole experience of living. It's like there's not a like there isn't a Loa that is like singularly the Loa that we serve that's singularly culpable for all sorts of bad things, where it's like Kalfu is responsible also for where you are in the middle ground of like when you're before you're in the spirit world, right? But you're no longer in the physical world. That's when you're hanging out with Kalfu at that crossroads, waiting for your ticket to call to appear, before whomever. And that's like it's not his fault that he is surrounded by these weird ghosts and strange spiritual forces. That's just where they live, Kalfu it's very powerful. Some of those really powerful Loa, they don't you don't know, just how we don't know our strengths sometimes, they don't know their strengths sometimes. It's like what could be a little push or shove for him could be being punched in the face, by some boxer. It's like uh, and that too is a kind of a thing too. Sometimes we don't realize that, like, just because it's not what we wanted doesn't mean that it's bad or that it isn't actually good for us. Because there have been times when I've looked at like, how to get out of here, but like really, it's like important that I did because I've now learned something that I would never have learned otherwise.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, man. So is there another spirit you'd like to talk about, or another aspect of this that perhaps I haven't covered that we kind of would like to end on?
Like Gede is one of everybody's favorite, like group of Loa, because the Gede are weird. They are like living in excess. They're not living, they're dead, but they're kind of like an interesting kind of group of spiritual beings anyhow, because unlike the rest of the Loa, they're like, there's kind of little ways that I look at this. It's kind of like there's like a level. There's like the Bowens. The Bowens are they're for sure Loa, right? They have identities, names, ways of being served, individualities like Baron Samdi, Baron Lacroix, Baron Simitier, Baron Noir, Baron Gefash, etc. Right? Then you got all the named Gedes that people know, like Gede Nibo, Brab Gede, Gede Plumage, Gede Wasso, so on and so forth. And then you have everybody else. So it's like, and then everybody else is like, those are the people like maybe people that don't receive last rites, people that have been like lost and no one knew where they were and didn't receive last rites, all different kinds of things. And
those are the ones that really touch my heart as a grave worker, and that really like, because in a way, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like, because in a way, it's thankless on the material realm. The kind of grave work is kind of thankless on the material realm because you're not. Because there's a lot of grave workers that try to get stuff or like try to like curse people and stuff like that. I've never done a curse in a grave. Like that's not my game. But all those like Gede, for instance, that need a little bit of help between places. Those are the ones that kind of touch my heart. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's like those Gede that they're not. I don't like the Gede don't exist everywhere as a Loa. You know what I mean? They're like, sometimes they're seen as like, because those are dead individuals, those are dead people, and it's like the ones that have names or individualities that keep on reappearing. Like those are the ones that have like that Loa status, if you will, because they're continuous exchanges. It's like, it's not like this is this one that exists here for this one person, because we all have a Gede. It's not always one that's known. Sometimes we have some other guy. Someone else that doesn't have like a household name, if you will, But the thing with Gede that makes it different from all the rest of Loa, which is why sometimes they're not considered Loas, because they're not held to the morality of Guinea, right? Because the Gede, like it can be really attractive to consider working with the Gede and only with the Gede. Like when I was first starting out, like I was one of those people where I was like, I don't, Lorana, whatever, right? And I was like, and I was doing a lot of stuff with the Petzl, and my court at the time too was a very Petzl heavy and Gede. And so I was like, well, this is fine. But really, when I think about it, it was like, they are leading you closer to them than they are leading you closer to where your destiny is supposed to be, or wherever because like they are having a great time with you, and they're, whether they're existing through you or you're sharing these experiences and things. And just like Legba, Gede is right there, ready to show up right away almost, and and so I always tell people, I tell them to like have caution with them, because like they don't know when to stop, right? Because they don't need to, they're dead, But our lives are fragile, and we have to protect ourselves and make sure that we see it ourselves to the end of whatever we're supposed to do, And so like the other thing too that you touched on that is really important with the Gede is how you interact in the cemetery. Like Maman Brigitte, she's kind of this prosecutorial force for the dead, where she's like you have to. Like it's not like like with a god or whatever, and you read all your sins or whatever. But like you eventually have to answer for shit you've done, right? And you have to like were you in the right or were you wrong? And one of the things is that when you interact in the cemetery, because there's people that do all kinds of nonsense in the cemetery, right? It's like, and they'll leave their stuff there and they'll leave it behind. They'll destroy graves and monuments and things like that just for whatever. And eventually, like those, you answer for all of these things because that's the dead are part of our community just as much as the spirits and the living people, and how you and you're about to enter into this part of the community. Do they really want somebody in their community who's like, they've been like, leaving your trash and, cursing everybody and their grandma in this place? Do we really want you here? It's like, you have to answer for that stuff. And, yeah, so, and I think it's also kind of really refreshing too, because like, voodoo is practiced in the States is very different as voodoo practiced in Haiti. And in Haiti is like, has a lot of challenges. A lot of people are struggling, and because if there's only 3 physicians for a doctor, that means that only 3 people can become the doctor, and that means that if your kid doesn't get to do this thing right exactly in this place, then they might not be able to be that doctor. And so people are willing to do extreme things that I don't think most people here would ever consider doing, as far as spiritual work to a child, to a family, to a relative. But like when that there's also a spiritual force that you have to answer to because of these things that you may have asked for, I don't know. I think it's good, at least, because we have to have some kind of like checks and balances, right? It's a little bit with ourselves. We're not just autonomous beings that can do whatever we want. We are, but eventually we have somebody that's
Consequence.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I guess we'll wrap up these sections of our videos, but I want to thank you very much for talking to me on these videos, and we'll talk after or whatever. But yeah, is there anything that you'd like to plug? Any like a group on Facebook, anything like that to anybody watching?
Yeah, you can definitely, if you check out my books, they're available on HaitianPress.com. I write under my ritual name, Gassezi Bongan. I have a Facebook group, which is like North American Voodooism, something like that. And you can check it out there. I post every day different stuff about the Loa. But yeah, and I'm on Facebook. You can friend me. My name's Joseph Robichaux, and I talk about voodoo all the time. So, if that's what you want to do, you can find me.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been great, man. And yeah, I'll definitely try to put some of your books up in the either below, or I'll just put the pictures up in the video. But yeah, man, it was great talking to you. Thank you very much for coming on. And yeah, we'll all see you in the future.
Thanks.